Can you hear me? Great.
Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Check.
Check, check.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Nancy? Oh, you don't have your headphones.
Can you hear me? Yep.
All right, so it is 10:15, so I call the special meeting to order for the Boise School District. Let's start with a roll call of the trustees, Clerk Mass.
Trustee Wagers,
Here.
Trustee Greeley,
Here.
Trustee Oppenheimer,
Here.
Trustee Esty, Trustee Gregory,
Here.
Trustee Doan.
Here.
We are just missing Trustee Esty, but she should be joining us.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for attending the meeting today. Remind you of the values of the district to start out with, as I like to start meetings. So we're based on respect, dignity, honesty, responsibility, and teamwork. And these are becoming more and more important every day for us. Just as a little privilege, I'd like to say some thank yous to some folks up front. We've been receiving lots of input lately, which is great. And I'd like to thank those parents, students, and community members for taking the time to carefully craft emails allowing the trustees to get a glimpse of the impact the pandemic is having on their and their loved ones' lives. Also would like to thank teachers and administrators and staff for prioritizing the safety of our students, staff, and community. This is what keeps us going. Also, a little thank you to the medical and health professionals that we continue to lean on time after time, letting us use their expertise to help make the best decisions possible for our community. And I would also like just to thank the trustees. We're putting in a lot of time and getting a lot of feedback, and it's not always easy, and this is not our day job. And just thank you for taking time away from your families and jobs to educate yourselves to make informed decisions for our school district. And with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Superintendent Dennis and let him have the floor.
President Wagers, first of all, thank you for those thank yous, because I think it is important for everyone to understand that everybody's working as hard as we can, from the trustees all the way down to everybody in our building. So thank you for saying that. The purpose of today's meeting is kind of to update the board on our reopening plan, and also to inform all of you of the updated guidance that we received from Central District Health yesterday afternoon. This guidance reflects the medical community's analysis of the Boise School District data in regards to our impact on community spread and our safety protocols. Our administrative team is going to go through the presentation and data with you this morning, but I want to acknowledge that this may feel like a sharp turn from where we were in August. I want to assure the board and the community that our stance has always been and will continue to be to follow the advice of our medical experts. As you'll see, Central District Health, Dr. Mark Nasser and Dr. Kenny Bramwell have all agreed that we can continue to move forward. With that being said, we will continue to monitor the situation daily. And if the recommendations from our medical partners change, we will follow that advice. So with that being said, I would like to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Roberts, who will start the presentation, and then at the end we can take some questions.
President Wagers, trustees, good morning. I would like to talk with you a little bit about our plans moving forward. I'm sure that you all remember a few weeks ago, we started implementing our phased return to in-person learning plan, and that has been going very well, and we'd like to continue that implementation. This week, we brought back 3rd through 6th grade students, and in a couple of weeks, unless we hear different guidance from our medical professionals and CDH, we'd like to bring back our secondary students, our 7th through 12th grade students. The implementation, though, of that 3rd phase of our plan will be based on the same criteria we've used every time we've moved through the plan. So safety protocols must be maintained. A number of positive COVID-19 cases and students or teachers being quarantined, they cannot have hindered our school operations. So I'll explain that a little bit. If we have large groups that are having to quarantine, or if we have large positive cases, or if we don't have enough substitutes, any of those things that would affect our operations and affect the amount of spread in our buildings, we would not move forward. And then we will, just as Superintendent Dennis said, we will closely work with Central District Health and the medical professionals before we decide to move forward. We have determined that we will stay in this hybrid model the entire first semester. We had lofty goals of bringing our students back 5 days a week, beginning on November 9th. However, with the amount of spread in the community, we just cannot adequately distance enough if we have all of our students back in our classrooms, and it's been working really well with just half of the population back on any given day. So we know that through the remainder of the first semester that we will not move out of this hybrid model. And again, we will continue to monitor the data carefully, and we will adjust as needed. So even though right now we're saying our goal is to go into phase 3 with our secondary students beginning the 19th of October, I think I have that date right. If we get guidance next Thursday saying this is not sustainable for us, or it's not the right thing to be doing from Central District Health and medical professionals, we will pivot at that time. I'd like to ask Gina Pinnell from Central District Health to talk a little bit about this. I think she's going to also call it a pivot in their guidance. But before I do, I also wanted to let everyone on the board know that twice a week we participate in calls with local education leaders, the district leaders in Central District Health's area with Central District Health. And then we have 2 calls a week we also do with, it's an Ada County call, and that involves all of the local elected officials, the hospitals, and Central District Health, and then school districts in that call as well. So we do 4 calls a week to stay, to keep monitoring and checking to see what is happening in the community. So with that, I'm going to ask Gina, and Gina is incredibly gracious with her time and her availability. I think I asked her yesterday at about 1:30 if she could participate this morning in this meeting, and she graciously said yes. So Gina, I'm going to let you speak a little bit about the updated guidance.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and board members for the opportunity. So yes, we also are calling this a little bit of a pivot. Backing up a little bit, we knew that the more we learn about this, the better we understand it. Also, the implementation of school reopening plans tells us how it's impacting spread in our communities and the case rates and all the things that we use to assess hospital capacity, et cetera. So I will speak specifically about your district since it's your board meeting. Boise School District has done an incredible job keeping kids physically distanced, looking at their safety protocols, making sure they're enforced. So when we look at the guidance we gave for, moving into category 3 and making that recommendation for remote learning, that was based on not knowing what was going to happen, based on not knowing how schools were going to respond to the tall tasks of doing the things that are incredibly and drastically different than they've done in the past. So we know that we created that case rate at 20 per 100,000 with communication with our healthcare partners, knowing that there was sort of a trend that when that was the case rate that we established, that's when hospitals started to see their impact. And currently we're not seeing that. And so we know there's also a delay in what hospitals will see because of the delay in the transmission, the delay in exposures that can happen. But for now, we're not seeing this school district contribute to transmission in the community, contribute to spread. And that is a huge indicator for us that things are going the way they should be. So it is a shift for the board. It's a shift for the district. It's a shift for parents because the expectation was if we're in category 3, we need to maybe look at going remote. At this point in time, that is not necessarily the case. We are asking for strict enforcement of those physical distancing guidelines and protocols for masking. Those things are going to keep your students and staff safe. And what we're seeing right now based on the district's policies is that is happening. It is still early on for bringing those kiddos back. They haven't been back, for a whole bunch of weeks, but I can say that they are continuing to monitor as they bring in the 3rd through 6th grade. That might change things, but what we've seen with them implementing their policies in the K through 2 has been well received, and we anticipate that will be the same for the upcoming grades. So I think as far as what the board is, if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to address them. We are going to put out a media release this morning because we're well aware that parents might have a lot of questions and teachers might have a lot of subsequent questions about this. But our main goal in all of this is to reduce the spread and slow the spread. And if schools are not contributing to that, then there's not an indication that anything needs to be done differently at this point in time. And I will say just quickly, it's not all schools that are not contributing to spread, but I will speak specifically for your district. So there could be other districts or other schools, other charters, and everyone's, trying to do their best with the resources that they have. And so the guidance we give applies to all schools, but we have worked really closely with yours to understand the processes and how our guidance will impact the decisions that you need to make. And so we feel very confident in the district's decision.
Thank you, Gina. Any trustees have any questions for Gina? I have one quick one. And it's a little bit about reaction time. So as we change, as things change, and maybe we do see a few cases in our schools, how quickly would Central District Health, how quickly do you think they could react to that kind of thing? So then give us the guidance appropriate for us to manage our schools.
So I don't know if you're asking specific about reactions to individual cases and responding and quarantining, or if you're asking about when we would make that recommendation to virtual learning.
Mostly when we would make that recommendation to virtual. I mean, that's kind of my goal. I know there'll be individual cases. We've had those. We will continue probably to have those. Hopefully not have community spread. We've avoided that so far. But how quickly, if we needed to do that pivot to virtual, how quickly do you think Central District Health could give us guidance on that?
Well, I think as Lisa mentioned, we speak twice a week, and we probably email every day in between there. So if there was a determination or a decision point that need to be made, we could communicate with that with you. We make our updates on our Tableau, our data dashboard on Mondays and Thursdays, and we have our calls on Mondays and Fridays. So I think it could be pretty rapid. It's in communication with our healthcare partners and looking at hospital impact. So when we're seeing trends, there was a lot of projections in the summer about if we hit X number of cases, and there were, 4 to 6 weeks where we had around 1,000 cases per week, and hospitals didn't get overwhelmed. So that's what happened last time. I don't know what will happen this time because it's about the people that are infected, the severity of the illness. There's so many variables, but I'm confident we could make those decisions as quickly as we needed to.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone, trustees? Well, once again, Gina, thank you for your time. We lean on you guys heavily because you are the experts and you're watching the numbers even closer than we are, and we're watching the numbers pretty close. So we appreciate your time. Anything from the superintendency for Gina?
And just to thank you again, because she also participated in our principals meeting yesterday, which was fabulous. So, and she is also a parent in the Boise School District, and we appreciate her support in that realm as well.
Thank you so much, Gina. So back to either Deputy Superintendent Roberts.
Yes. Thank you, President Wagers. Trustees, so on our next slide in our presentation, it is talking about the medical professionals' response. And we've said that we've worked with medical professionals. We've had the great pleasure of working with Dr. Candy Bramwell, who's with St. Luke's Health System, and Dr. Mark Nasser with St. Alphonsus Medical Group. And they also have been incredibly responsive and available when we need them. And so we have gone through our data with them. They have looked at our plans. We've had numerous meetings, and they also feel right now that we can continue on with our phased plan. Of course, we have to make sure that we remain fluid and we continue to monitor closely, and that if things do increase substantially in our schools or community, that we will we'll reevaluate the in-person learning. But again, they do support our decision to, if we do go to category 3 red, to stay with our phased return to in-person hybrid learning. So I just wanted to assure everybody that we have worked closely with them and will continue to work closely with them and appreciate their help tremendously. And at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to one of our directors, Becca Anderson.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So the very first question I heard from multiple people is, well, what's different about being in red at the start of the year versus being in red now? Because at the beginning of the year when we were in red, that was part of our decision making to begin as a virtual learning. And that's a great question. So basically, just like you heard Gina say, CDH and our medical professionals have pivoted as they learn more about COVID and they get to see our safety protocols in action. And so that's why the recommendations are different. And a good example of that is the face coverings and physical distancing. Really, we're learning that those are really the keys to reduce transmission. Another good example of that was we were super worried about surfaces early in the virus, and we've found that really the face covering and the physical distancing is more of where our emphasis and focus needs to go. We have proven through in-person instruction just for kids daycare, which the emergency day camps started in March and have run all the way through until now, and also athletics, that we can successfully have students in our buildings without community spread. Also, our data shows that in our schools, we've only had 2 cases of community spread where one positive person gives it to someone else. These were actual adult to adult exposures, and these happened prior to students even being in our buildings. So that data makes us feel really confident too.
Next. And we also know that we have evidence that our students and staff are able to follow the protocols. We weren't exactly sure how that would all work, and would this be difficult? And with our K2 students, as well as all of the students we've brought in for special programs throughout the first few weeks, they have been able to follow those protocols. And we do know that we have minimal quarantining because of the great work that our schools are doing. We knew this would probably be something that would happen potentially when we developed our phased return plan. So we included this as one of our FAQ questions and answers. And again, we stressed the fact that we would consult with CDH and medical professionals and look at what's happening in our schools and how it's going to make this decision to either move back to virtual or to continue going forward. So this was something we addressed. Thank you.
So as you all know, we are continually tracking our positive and probable cases in real time in the district and posting those to our website. We've broken our reporting up into different milestones. And so you can see June 22nd through August 16th, we had 23 positive cases. This was the period of time between when we started collecting the data and as teachers started on August 17th. So August 17th to September 21st, that was the start of the school year. Moving into the period where we started bringing back our pre-K through second grade, which was the next phase there. And then our newest phase started October 6th. That was when we brought in third through sixth grade. So you can see how the cases have played out during those chunks of time. The county and state cases are tracked on Central District Health's website. You can look at those. Obviously, there's been an uptick, and that's why we're here talking about this today. There's a lot of contributing factors when we talk to Gina Pinnell about that, and when we talk to others, and when you look at the data. Obviously, one of the factors that's impacted Ada County and the city of Boise is BSU has started to increase their testing on their campus, which, as you increase testing, is going to increase the number of people testing positive. And so that's one of the contributing factors. We put together a chart here to kind of show you the data that we've been collecting on our positive and probable cases. Again, you can see that back in June, from June 22nd to August 16th, that was a 56-day period where we had 23 positive cases, 2 probable cases. August 17th to September 21st, a 36-day window, we had 15 positives, 2 probables, and then September 22nd through October 5th, we had 9 positive cases and 2 probables. And then in our newest window, October 6th to current, we've had 2 positives and 3 probables. I did put the number of days in there because I wanted to make sure that we were as transparent as possible. We're obviously not comparing apples to apples on the total number of days in those windows. But nonetheless, the trajectory is going in the right direction for us as a district, which is positive. And that's something that the medical professionals look at as well in trying to say that we're doing what we need to be doing, and hence Gina Pinnell and the medical professionals we've consulted with supporting the direction we're going.
So one of the important things to understand as we look at our data is understanding the differences between cases, quarantining, and spread. Many times these 3 things get lumped together, where there may be a situation where you have 1 positive case and you have multiple people that end up having to quarantine because of an exposure to that positive case. But that does not mean that they are positive. And a lot of times there's a disconnect where people think that when people are quarantining that they are positive, and that is not accurate. that may not hold true, and it many times does not. So it's important to understand these definitions, and it's something that we've shared with our building principals in our schools, because we want to make sure as people look at our data, they understand exactly what we're looking at. And when we send out communications to families, we want to make sure that people understand the differences between these three. And we've included an example there where, we definitely see in the media where there's been athletic teams having to quarantine. And many times it's because of, when that happens, it's because of one case. The quarantining is done out of an abundance of caution. And the goal of that is to limit and contain the spread of the virus, and to ensure that others are not getting it. So that's an important step in the process, but it is different than being a positive case.
President Wagers and Board of Trustees, I would like to talk to you about how our student numbers are looking in our schools. As discussed in previous board meetings, our district enrollment is down about 1,500 students. In addition to that, we have approximately 4,000 students who have chosen to participate in our Boise Online School. So if you look at our enrollments, and I'm going to give you a few examples. At Bora High School, last year, their enrollment was about 1,400 students. In this current year, the enrollment is about 1,160 students. So in our hybrid model, where we're bringing half of the students back on Tuesday and Thursday and half the students back on Wednesday and Friday, Bora is looking at having about 580 students in their school. Whereas last year, they had about 1,400 students in their school. If you look at East Junior High, last year, East had 732 students. This year, they have 580. So they will be looking at about 290 students each day. And in addition to that, all of our junior highs have gone to 3 lunches. So at East, instead of having 488 kids at lunch during their first lunch, they will have less than 100 kids at lunch. Our biggest elementary, Riverside Elementary School, last year had 719 students. This year has 506 students. So they will have about 250 students per day, whereas last year they had over 700. At Horizon, we have last year about 570 students. This year we have about 422. And so in their daily attendance, they will have about 211 students. And in our elementary schools that are around the size of Taft, which had 322 students last year, this year has 234 students. They will be seeing approximately 117 students a day. So this hybrid model has really given us the opportunity to make sure we're following those protocols. Our students are doing an amazing job of wearing their masks. But in addition to that, these numbers help us with that physical distancing and allow us to stay 6 feet apart, and still allows us to have students in person so they can get that important instruction from their teachers. Ms. Roberts, Deputy Superintendent Lisa Roberts.
Thank you, Dr. Thamert.
President Wagers,
Trustee Doan.
can I ask Dr. Tamer a question?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe it's more of a statement than a question, and you tell me if I'm right. You went through those numbers, and although there may be 100 or 200 at that school or at lunch, we're still keeping them in smaller. It's not like there's 100 or 200 students all in a cafeteria or all in a gymnasium or all in a, in a place at once. You still, even though there's 100 or 200, you still keep them in small groups that are segregated.
Correct. President Wagers, Trustee Doan. Yes, our staff are working, they're doing such an amazing job of keeping the kids in what they like to refer to as pods, keeping track of what students are integrating with others. So even if, let's say that East Junior High does have 100 students who are eating lunch at the same time, they are spread out across a variety of locations so that they can keep at least 6 feet of social distancing. And then those that are supervising our outdoors are also working with students to make sure they keep their masks on while they're outside, unless they are absolutely at least 6 feet apart.
Any other questions at this time?
Okay.
Great, thank you, Deputy Superintendent Roberts.
President Wagers. So also I wanted to talk a little bit about the Boise State data and the fact that they have increased their testing. That is a good thing. We're happy that they've increased their testing because now they're able to find asymptomatic students, and then they can quarantine those students. So for the health of our community, the fact that they've increased their testing is really going to be of benefit to us. But of course, that is going to lead to an increase in cases that they're recording. So we're pleased they're doing that. BSU has been a great partner with us and has helped us with a lot of great advice along the way. And we've gotten some great ideas for our own plans from Boise State. We also wanted to point out that you again can view, if you're interested, and we will make this available also, to our staff members again on the 16th of September. We did a panel and answered questions from from staff across the district, and we had the healthcare providers on that and then district leadership. So we'll make that available too if anybody wanted to watch that again. And at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions from the board on on the plan that we have talked about today.
So any questions or comments on the presentation? They can be general questions, they can be comments that you have, anything is fair game.
President Wagers.
Trustee Gregory.
Lisa, I'm not sure who can respond to this question, but can you give us an idea about how the busing and transportation is going with social distancing and routes and things like that?
President Gregory, it's going really well. I have to admit, we're so pleased with Durham, our new bus company. They're doing a great job with sanitizing, with making sure students have on their masks, with having all of their staff, do a self-check each day on their health and wellness. And so far that's going really well. Channel 2, as a matter of fact, just did a really nice feature on Durham Bus Company, and we're thrilled to partner again with them. So far that's going really well.
Other questions?
President Wagers.
Trustee Doan.
I got a couple, but I want to just start with, are we going to address sports now or later in this?
Let's talk about sports, but let's hold that until we finish this actual presentation. So we'll get to that question.
Okay.
So you got another one?
Sorry about that.
No worries. I've got just a quick one. So when we opened and when we closed before, back when we were reopening a district, we needed 2 weeks notice to do that. And mostly that was because of school lunch and transportation. How quickly could we close if we need to close? How quickly can we make that happen?
President Wagers, trustees, that's a great question. And so of course, when we're talking about bringing the secondary students back, we have to have that 2 weeks to plan to bring them back. And that's where we're at, right now. However, we can close on a dime. I mean, we could announce at 2:00 in the afternoon that we're closing for the next day if we need to. Unfortunately, it will lead to some extra expenses for us for transportation and some food waste because of the food that we've ordered, planning on having our students in our buildings, but we can close on a dime. That's pretty much what we did in the spring, and we can do that again if we need to. And like I said, there'll be some waste and some lost revenue there, but we will definitely do what's best for our community if we're asked to.
Thank you.
President Wagers.
Trustee Gregory.
And so Deputy Superintendent Roberts, can we, ideally in an ideal world, we would give our parents a little bit more notice, but in the middle of a pandemic, sometimes notice is not a luxury that everybody has. But I think that's one of the reasons for the touch points with CDH Mondays and Thursdays and these other calls, so that if we see a trend by Fridays, on a Fridays we could say, we're going to have to move or whatever. So I don't want the public to think that we're going to close on a dime guaranteed. We could, and if we have to, if we need to, we will. But we also can respond and say, we've reached a point at which we can no longer be in person safely, and therefore on Monday we will return or whatever. So I think our parents would like notice, but they need to recognize that sometimes we can't give notice. That if notice is possible, we will. Is that correct?
President Wagers, Trustee Gregory, I'm going to kind of jump in here. You're exactly right, Trustee Gregory. We want to give as much notice as we can, which is one of the reasons why we spend so much time talking and making sure that we understand the lay of the land with Central District Health. We want to make sure that we provide opportunities for parents to plan to the best ability that we can. So yes, Deputy Superintendent Roberts is 100% correct. It's easier for us to close operationally than it is for us to open operationally. But from a public perception, we're going to give as much notice as physically possible if we need to close again.
Thank you. Any other questions on the plan update as presented?
President Wagers.
President Wagers.
I think we'll go with Trustee Greeley.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I really appreciate, first of all, Gina's explanation on what they're looking at, but also in the slideshow, I basically had all my questions answered, especially understanding the difference between red at the beginning of the year and now. I really appreciate the time you guys took to really help us understand that and help our teachers and the public understand that piece. So just that presentation answered all the questions I had. I really appreciate it.
Who is next? Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you, President Wagers. I just wanted to piggyback on what Trustee Greeley was saying, in that the information that Gina and all the medical experts have provided is great. I like how you pointed out that this is a pivot, because I know there are some folks that think you said this 2 months ago. Well, we're in a different place right now. And I loved the presentation showing that, we've done as a school district a tremendous job keeping the spread down within the students and staff within the district. And in my opinion, this is not necessarily moving the goalpost, but rather it's looking at and utilizing the information that we have at hand and working within the realities of what the information and data that we have. I also want to commend, the teachers and staff of keeping our numbers down within the schools. And I also want to remind our community that we can do everything we can when we have the students in our classroom. And I totally support continuing on the path of the phased approach. I think it's smart. I think it's very thoughtful. But I also want to remind our community that we can't control what happens outside of the doors of the school. And when we drive around Boise, and I oftentimes will see kids are wearing masks all over the place, but it's the parents who sometimes don't. We have to continue to work as a community to keep these numbers or get them back to the direction that we need to go, because we do want to keep our kids in school. And so this isn't just about, the Boise School District cannot fix the community spread outside of the doors. What we can do, and I think that they've done a very, very good job of keeping that spread down in our schools. So thank you to Superintendent Dennis and Deputy Superintendent Roberts and all the teachers who have been very, very smart about how we're doing this. And I really appreciate that we are going to move towards continuing on the path that we're on. So just thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Oppenheimer. Any other
President
comments
Wagers.
from Trustee Doan?
Thank you. I want to echo Trustee Greeley and Oppenheimer, what they just said. You know, coming into today, even with all the emails and all the information I had coming in today, I was still very, very leery. You know, in the past, when we went to red and we have used that, we have followed CDH's guidelines. I was just like, how can we not do that again? But I appreciate, you know, just like then, we're taking the advice of the experts. We are listening to CDH. We are listening to our doctors, and we are following that guidelines. And I appreciate Trustee Oppenheimer saying that we're not moving the goal line. We're learning and we're changing on new information every single day that comes in. So I want you to know that I was very, very leery coming into today, and I was wondering what to do. I know we're all still just trying to work through this, but I appreciate that information. And again, we are following the experts now. Now that I've listened to Gina and I've listened to the doctors, I feel way more comfortable. And the approach and the great job that you guys have done to keep people separated. You know, I hear all the time, how can you put these hundreds of kids in school? And we are, but we're keeping them separate, and we can isolate them, and we can contain the spread. So I do have one question after that statement. And first, thank you, Superintendent and your entire team. You're doing a great job. I appreciate you a lot. So my question, though, is about the teachers, because we're getting hundreds of emails from teachers individually. And I do want to know what the BEA has to say, because the BEA represents those teachers, and doesn't mean we don't listen to all the teachers individually. Of course we do. But the BEA represents them, and I want to know what they have to say, and I want to support the BEA and what they have to say on where we're headed.
President Wagers, Trustee Doan, I think that's a great question. I will also let you know, we of course we talk with Kathy Yamamoto and Stephanie Myers from the BEA on a regular basis. And then they also were part of our phased reopening planning process, which was great. We appreciate their help and support there. But Stephanie is on, and I will turn it over to her and let her give you an update.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, President Wagers and trustees. Thank you and good morning. You know, honestly, based on the plethora of emails and phone calls this morning, to be honest, our teachers are scared. They're a little worried because they just, you know, they don't understand. They want to make sure that they're doing what's right. But as you know, we have been involved in the conversations with the district and reopening schools. And first and foremost, our concerns are for the safety and well-being, whether that's social, emotional, physical, or all three of them for our students and our staff and our community. We advocate that we have to follow the CDH and the medical professionals. We say that all the time, and we're saying it again today. The decisions around our schools are so very important, and it's vital that we work together to make sure that those protocols and mitigating factors are followed. Given the short timeline, I did call an emergency exec board meeting and negotiations team meeting last night to gather some data. Those two groups are kind of a microcosm of our staff, and we've set it up that way so that we can have input. That being said, the BEA has about 1,800 members, and we cannot represent all of them without doing a survey, and we intend to do so. And our data is strong for our pre-K to 2 kids to second grade. I think our data is really strong, and our teachers are figuring it out, and they're really working through it. Our 3-6 kids haven't been in very long. And so our 7-12 kids haven't been in at all. And so I think that is a concern that they haven't started school yet, and having more data is always better to make well-informed decisions for our kids and our staff. And like Trustee Oppenheimer said, we urge our community. School is the best place for our kids. We have to get them in the buildings so that we know that they're fed and they're protected. And but we won't get there unless everybody does their job. So I think our teachers are worried. I think they're scared. I wish all of them could have seen this presentation, because like you, Trustee Doan, I think they're not, they're not sure what that looks like. And especially right now, our secondary schools, that is probably where the stress is coming from. So thanks.
Great. Thank you,
President
Stephanie.
Wagers.
Hold on 1 second. I think Superintendent Roberts or Deputy Superintendent Roberts has.
Yes, please keep that as Deputy Superintendent. This is already more than I can handle, I think. I did want to clarify, thank you so much, Stephanie, that all of our staff members did see this presentation this morning. So we called a meeting yesterday with all of our principals. We walked through it with them. Then we asked them to present it to all of their staffs this morning. So all of our staff members have seen the presentation as of this morning.
Great. Thank you. And thanks again, Stephanie. The teachers, they are what makes this place go. And we need to provide the proper, supports and information to them so they can help keep everybody safe, because they're really the ones, when it comes down to, they make it all happen. Trustee Gregory.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you also. Thank you, President Gregory, or President Wagers, to Stephanie for just for the viability of the BEA involved in all the decisions that we make. Thank you so much for having those touchstones that you have created to test the waters with different things with the teachers, and then to participate with our leadership team. We have to do this all together. Like, this is a pandemic, and we have to do this all together. And I think there is total agreement between teachers and staff and administration and board that, and our community, that our children are best being in school in terms of academic access, equity to that access for all children, protection, food, social and emotional. And it has just been heartwarming to see the response in our pre-K and through 2 to being with their teachers. The kids are so excited to be with their teachers. And they know that things are not normal. I mean, they know they have masks on, they know, but they're still excited and they're still working. So thank you to those teachers who've been the first foray into in-person. And now our 3-6 teachers are doing the same thing. And it's kind of like, okay, we're sharing and the experiences that happened in pre-K 2 and building the experience in 3-6. And hopefully that will bring a comfort level to our secondary teachers. If we, fingers crossed, get the chance to move to the next phase. I will, in my estimation, when we first said we're going to begin a phased approach, we said that this phased approach is intended to keep us in school in person as long as we can, even if we have to do this every other day business and we can't go 5 days a week. So I'm really comforted that we are achieving that objective of keeping kids in school. Otherwise, we would be back virtually. But I think that the data that we've seen today support staying the course for what we're doing right now. And hopefully it will justify moving our secondaries into the hybrid model. And that would be fabulous for our community and for our kids. But the data will be the data, and we'll look at it very, very carefully. And I hope that our staff can be assured that we know that they are our delivery model to our students. And when we say we do the best thing for students, we know that we have to consider our staff, because they are the ones who do the work. And we are a symbiotic organization here where we all depend on everybody. So I just wanted to say thank you and appreciate their courage in a profession that is really tough right now. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Trustee Gregory. Trustee Doan, did you have a follow-up since you asked the initial question?
No, thank you. Well, no, thank you.
President Wagers.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you. This is a follow-up for Stephanie. I kind of lost you a little bit. You mentioned that you did a survey with the teachers, or you were doing a survey. Could you kind of talk about that again? Because you said that you had strong results from the K through 2 teachers, but I kind of missed that whole thing. So could you talk about that again? Thank you.
So yeah, we have about 1,800 members in the BEA, and that's classified and certified staff members. And to get a gauge on that, that isn't what I can say looking at my email or my phone calls, right? I mean, that's a lot of people. And so we have to do a survey, and we'll do that survey. We'll let them settle with this news, today, and kind of reflect on it over the weekend, and we'll figure out how to get some information from them. I did ask my executive board and my negotiations team, which represents every piece of the district: elementary, junior high, high school, different levels, different quadrants. And we had a meeting last night, and their concerns were more just the amount of data that we have available right now. Our 3-6 kids have only been in school just this week, and our secondary kids haven't even stepped in schools except for our student athletes. So we need to get some information on where our staff thought processes are and how they're feeling. But obviously it's not going to be today. So, we'll start that process next week.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions for Stephanie Myers? Okay, thanks, Stephanie. We appreciate you participating. Any final questions on the plan update? Otherwise, we'll move to comments, and that's where we hit your question, Dennis, at that point. Any other questions on the plan? Okay, moving forward from the plan update, we'll go to board superintendent comments, and Trustee Doan, I'm going to let you go first since you already had the question.
Well, yeah, it was just about sports, in the last few days, as I'm stopped along the streets, I've had parents walk up to me and say, I hear we're moving to red. What about sports? Is their first question. So it's a big deal. And I just didn't want us to move on. I know you wouldn't not address it, but I didn't know when the appropriate time was. I just wanted an update on what we're going to do.
Sure. Superintendent Dennis.
President Wagers, Trustee Doan, thank you for the perfect segue into what we were going to talk about here at the end of the meeting anyway. So obviously, again, we're in the same kind of a situation that we were, where people kind of are assuming that a decision that was made in August, this has to be the same decision that is made today. I can tell you that from the data that we're seeing around our sports, we have had a handful of cases where people have brought COVID to the school. We have had zero community spread as it relates to our sports, and the directors can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that we've had about 5 cases total in our sports program that has been going on for almost 5 weeks now, which is really good numbers, which again goes to the point that I think we have been trying to make, and that is we need to celebrate the fact that our protocols are working. And that is not a negative. That is actually a positive, and it really speaks to the work that our teachers and our principals have done to ensure that we can continue to move forward. And so we're going to continue at this stage, Trustee Doan, to move forward with our sports program. We will work with, obviously, the SIC. We have a meeting early next week. The SIC 5A superintendents are going to meet to talk a little bit more about the athletic programs. But at this stage of the game, we're going to follow the same protocols that we have, the same criteria that we have with our in-person school, and continue to move forward, if that answers your question directly.
Does that answer it, Trustee Doan? So one quick follow-up to that, maybe Superintendent Dennis, is, I know we had like a problem with the Bora soccer team. We were able to shut down that team. We quarantined that team. Is that the typical way we'd handle things as we found issues on teams?
President Wagers, absolutely. The Bora soccer team example is exactly the kind of an example that we're talking about here. We had a positive case that was quarantined for 14 days. To our knowledge, there has been no community spread even within that team, which is a really, really positive to talk about the protocols that the coaches have put into place. And so again, I think we're really, I cannot say enough how appreciative we are of the work that our staff and our community is doing to make sure that we can keep going here. It's just, I don't even know if that I have the words. So to your point, President Wagers, all of us took a leap of faith at the beginning of this, that what we were planning was going to work, and it seems to be working. And we will continue to monitor all of it, whether it's athletics or it is academic. We are going to monitor these protocols every single day. And hopefully the ultimate goal is that we do not have to shut down our schools again. That's the ultimate goal, because we all know how important it is for our kids to be face to face with the teacher. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Superintendent. Trustee Gregory.
One comment and thought that I had was that I so appreciate teachers and staff and principals being available to parents when parents have specific situations with their children. I think our principals have done a great job of addressing those children with unusual and specific concerns. And that's kind of been my go-to when I have a parent approaching me with something very specific. It's just wonderful to be able to say, you need to go talk to your principal. That's the touch point that will see if something different can be done. And so thank you to those teachers and staff who are taking care of those really extreme exceptions where kids are in educational and social emotional crisis. We have so many capable people and caring people in the staff who have done a great job with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gregory.
President Wagers.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you. Superintendent Dennis, I want to also thank you for how you've handled the athletics. I can say as a parent with a daughter playing volleyball right now in junior high at East, I've been really impressed with how they've handled that. Every parent has to have a ticket to go. They are doing a great job of socially distancing within the stands. The kids are wearing masks when they're not on the court. Some kids are wearing masks on the court. But I think that they've done a really good job, and it just gave me a lot of comfort as a parent, knowing that those protocols are all in place. So thanks to you and your team to continue to allow sports to happen. And I do think, like you said, those protocols that are in place are allowing us to continue to have athletics happening in our schools. So thanks.
Great. Any other final board or superintendent's comments? Okay, I'd just like to say, I think we'll probably bring this meeting to a close, but once again, a quick thank you, especially to students, families, and teachers and staff for wearing masks and making social distancing a priority. It's the only way we can keep our community safe and keep our schools open is if we keep following those protocols. And people are doing a great job, but if we want to keep them open, we got to keep doing it. So thank you so much. Just like to remind everybody, Boise Schools is here educating today for a better tomorrow, and I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President.
Trustee Doan.
Mern.
I believe it's been moved for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Trustee Gregory. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Everybody have a great day. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.